Hold on. Good afternoon, everybody. Mike Shea, Transworld Business Advisors. I am here with Mark Sutton, and Mark is a Ameriprise financial planner here in Lakeland. And the reason I wanted to have Mark on is a couple things. One is, we run small businesses to make money, and every time, and I can tell you in the last 48 hours, I've talked to a couple business owners, and they were always hiding money off the top line. They're skimming money off the top line because they don't want to pay taxes. And then when they're in their 50s and 60s and they call me, A, I can't get them the maximum amount of money because they've screwed up their books and records by hiding money. And then B, they've never saved. So the amount of money, because they screw up the way they do their bookkeeping, the amount of money that their business is worth isn't sufficient for them to retire on. And then they're stuck like a dwarf star, just, burning out, and the business crashes and burns because they can't exit affordably. So I regularly am telling people, you need to call a financial planner. You need to get a SEP or a 401k set up, depending upon, there's varying different rules to that. So as I was coming home from one of those very meetings last night, I said, I got to get Mark on the phone and, memorialize some type of documentation about what small business owners should do, and some of the misconceptions about how big a business you have to have a 401k or a pension plan. So Mark, let's kind of talk through, we got about 30 minutes for this. Let's talk through the primary things for small business owners. And let's kind of pare it down to as small as a one man, like a real estate practitioner, right? Solo practitioner, up to maybe 20 employees. What are the various different programs that we can put in place for them to, save money, and then, create some employee retention? Because when there's a pension plan or something in place where someone's contributing to their future, employees tend to get sticky, right? And then I can kind of chime in on how this matters when we do business valuation. The bottom line is that when you do stuff like this, as opposed to hiding the money on the top line, it counts when we look at valuation. If you do the shady stuff, it doesn't count. No one's going to believe you. So what are the various tools that small business owners can use from a retirement standpoint?
Yeah, so there are some of the main ones that we typically see are 401k, which obviously most people are aware of or are familiar with or heard of. But some of the ones that some people may not be as familiar with, but we still see are very common, are simple IRAs. And then we also have SEP IRAs, which you mentioned earlier. And then there's also even a individual 401k for really small, businesses are typically individual owners. All of them have, some of their pros and cons depending on how the company operates. But one that we see to be the most beneficial for smaller businesses are simple IRAs. And that's because of the reduced cost and not as many restrictions as a 401k would have. I think you're muted there.
So let's take the classic small Florida business. Say I got a lawn guy, who's cutting your grass, right? Sure. He's out there, he's got maybe a part-time helper. Maybe the guy's a 1099, maybe he's not. He's probably putting in his pocket $75,000 a year, revenues like 140 or 150. He's married with a kid. This is broad brush, but what would be like the tool we would probably look at for that guy or gal?
For that small, I'd probably say an individual 401k would probably be more appropriate, especially if the employee's 1099. I don't believe that they would be able to set up something for that employee if they're 1099.
Well, how would that work? What does that look like in terms of dollar contribution, cost to set up, and then how does it help them tax wise?
So individual 401k, it's actually very unique because you can make in contributions as an employee and an employer. So you can contribute actually a significant amount. The employer can contribute up to 25% of compensation, which is I think $58,000 for 2021. And then you still have an employee contribution limit, which is 19.5 if you're under 50, and then I believe 26 if you're over 50. There's a catch-up contribution for that.
So, basically someone can put 19 grand away into a 401k and play the market, and, every year get some some lift, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8% lift in their portfolio. And what's important for them to understand as it relates to what I do is, instead of that going right, because let's say they're running clean books and that goes right to the bottom line, they're getting taxed ordinary income. When you set the 401k up, right, whether it's a Roth or not a Roth, you're not getting taxed on the income. It goes, so it's taking off the bottom line. It'll get taxed as ordinary income, but you're not getting, the corporation's not getting taxed. So I always am baffled when they're looking at their return. They're, so that guy's making 70 grand and we put 19,000. The ordinary income just dropped by 19,000, their tax bracket. So as I always explain, you're going to pay Uncle Sam or you're going to pay yourself.
Sure. Yeah.
The challenge for the small business owner becomes they worry about having cash for capital, for working capital, right? So they're always like, I have to have that cash, because banks generally don't treat these little guys really, really well. And then they have this perception they can't touch the money, but that's not true, is it? Like they can pull that out short term and then put it back in, right? Out of their retirement for like, is it 3 months? Isn't that the rule? Or they can borrow against their 401 at like 1%, 2%.
That depends on how the plan is set up and the rules to the I mean, that's plan. The 401k plans can have different rules per plan. So simple IRAs, SEP IRAs, they're more just they have more general rules on those kind of things. But 401ks typically have they're tailored to the individual. So it's not a kind of same for each person.
So I guess the takeaway for the small business owner is you have the ability, if you're communicating that concern to your financial planner, to set it up so there's some flexibility. But you have to be mature about it. It's like you can't put it in and take it out and think you're going to get away with it, not get away with it. But if you have to have access to money to say for like a month and then you borrow it and put it back in, there are ways of structuring the plans to do that.
Yes, I mean 401ks typically offer loan provisions where you can take money at a lower rate and still not lose out on investment opportunities as well. So then contributions that would be made typically go to paying back that loan, or you can pay it back as a lump sum if it's a short term type of situation.
Okay, where do SEPs come into play? Where do you think SEPs are applicable for small business owners?
So SEPs are good for employers that want to share profit, kind of as a profit sharing with employees. So SEPs are unique as and employees can't make contributions actually to the account. It's only the employer can. But if the employer has profit that they want to share, or maybe try to reduce some of their tax liability, they can spread some of that wealth per se to the employees and make a contribution to them.
Okay. And what about the what's it, the standard, the normal 401k? How does that work? Because I've seen it where, as a company, you have a corporation and you're a manager of the corporation, you can match it and then stair step up the contributions so that again you're mitigating the tax liability.
Yeah, so the simple IRA and the 401k kind of work similarly, where the employees can make a contribution and then the employers can make a match contribution. So you're contributing to your future, and then the employer can also contribute, which kind of incentivizes the employee to contribute because they're getting a dollar for dollar match, for some of that contribution. And the employer gets a tax break on that money that they're contributing to those employees as well.
Right. So if I'm an owner of my LLC, and I'm also an employee of that LLC, I, in theory, as the owner of the LLC, can contribute, and then I can personally contribute from my salary. And you're basically double dipping.
Yes.
That's why it's great. That always makes people's heads spin, but I'm like, no, that's a good thing, because if the corporation contributes, $10,000, and then I contribute $5,000 as an individual, particularly in the LLC where it's all flow through. As an S corp, it's an all flow through. You're really impacting both your ordinary income taxes as an employee plus your taxes on the corporation.
Yeah, I mean it's a great opportunity, and that's why for small businesses that have the cash flow and the ability to do it, we really stress on, the importance of that.
Why do business owners, why are you finding business owners get so confused by this stuff? Like, why don't they take advantage of it? Because it's baffling.
Honestly, I think most of it has to do with just they don't understand, and I think it's when it's something that you're not familiar with or don't understand, it's intimidating. So you may shy away from looking into it or talking about it because you don't want to feel stupid per se, for lack of better words, and not know or feel like you wouldn't understand. But it's as simple as just having a conversation, a 15-minute conversation with someone to just understand the basics and take steps to getting more familiar with these products. It's not something that you're going to understand right from the get-go per se, but as we explain and get more, into it, they'll be comfortable with it.
Yeah. I think last night I was with some folks, and I think the oldest person in the room was in their 60s. The younger ones were in their 50s, late 50s. And none of them had any savings. They were doing the old fashioned skimming off the top, which is problematic for a variety of different reasons. A, it's illegal. B, you're not able to deploy it into tools like this. Or if they were doing it outside of the corporation. So when I looked at their taxes, there was a sizable amount, several $100,000 on the bottom line. And I'm like, you guys do know where you are in the tax bracket, right? I'm like, you're getting hit, 30% on your income because you're reporting it, where you could have done, say the 401k, the corporation match, and then you match, and you were the 3 employees, and we could set the vesting period up for the rest of the employees at 5 years. I mean, there was a bunch of stuff they could have done to dramatically drop the taxable income and help themselves. And I said, look, you need to talk to a financial plan. The funny thing though is they turned to me and like, why didn't my accountant tell me? And I'm like, it's not the accountant's job, right? It's not the accountant's job to help you do financial planning. Your financial planner is a different animal. Your accountant, they just put spreadsheets together and file tax returns. They're not there for coaching. And oh, by the way, you probably, entrepreneurs tend not to listen to anybody. And it tends to, when it becomes a major issue is when they're trying to retire, and then you're 50 something years old and you haven't got a lot saved. So like, at what's the point they should start? Like how little is too little for you to help?
And I think right when a business is starting, there's no better way or better time or place to look at it. I mean, why not? You're getting everything else in order for a business and getting all your ducks in a row, right from the get-go. There's no better time to look into it and start it then. I mean, the sooner that you do it, the better. And the sooner that money can grow and have more time to grow. Or every time you wait, it's, wasted time that money's not growing or working for you.
Yeah, they sit, when you have a job, and you do your 401, your employment paperwork in a corporate job, you sit down and they kind of enroll you. It's like, here, fill this out, pick your stuff. And
sure. Yeah.
And small business owners, and I get it because I've been one, you always think you have time until responsibility starts to kick in and you're thinking, or some event happens that says, oh, I got to get my act together. And then you're 50, 60 and your body starts to break down and you haven't got 2 nickels rubbed together. And then when if you're in a trade, you're that lawn guy who started when he was 30 or 40, right? And 10 years later, he's 55 and it's 100 degrees out. Your body don't move that easily. But then you're trapped because then you can't pivot out because you don't have any resources to rely upon. And I think you're right. I think it's just a fear factor. I think people talk over their heads a little bit and don't explain it. I think there was an epiphany last night where one of the partners said, you're just moving money around. I'm like, yeah, basically. I'm taking it from here where you're getting hit and I'm moving it to here. Yes, it costs you $1,000 to set the program up, but I'm saving you 30, right? And as long as you're aware of the moving parts, then you're good to go. And then you're disciplined and then you manage your cash different because you haven't got this war chest that you've hidden, stuffed in your mattress. Definitely. Okay. So what other tools are there for them? So have you ever heard of a defined benefit plan?
Yes.
So talk a little bit about that, who that's kind of a target for, because there's some clients I think in Lakeland that I've met so far that could use that.
It's not something that we have ever, or we set up or really do much here. We have bigger employers typically that I notice that have benefit plans, and I think they're typically for higher net worth clients or higher income clients that we typically set for from what I've noticed.
Yeah, I think it's for, like, if you've got a successful entrepreneur and their spouse is, making a couple $100,000 in a regular job and they're living within their means, that's a tool they can use that's pretty helpful. Again, same issue, because if you're, two double income families making a couple $100,000 a year, you're in the top tax bracket, you got to get creative. And this is a tool that you kind of grow into. When you start with your 401ks, your simple 401k steps.
Exactly.
And then you scale and scale and scale as you start to make more money and become more, the difference between rich and wealthy, you become wealthy. And then, your broad job as a team, a family starts to progress in their income. Then you got to start to evolve into these defined benefit plans and things like that. Right. And explain it in real brief, because we're not most of my clients, but I think there's a couple people, like I met some folks last Friday who, one's in the legal profession and one owns a company, and, they're doing well. And same thing, there's $900,000 sitting on the bottom line of the tax return and nothing prepared. I'm just, I'm like, okay, you could do this, right? I'm not a financial planner, but I know there's some stuff that you could do, right? So you go call.
Yeah, I mean, the defined benefit plan is, like I said, it's something for the employers to set up for the higher income employees that provides an additional benefit to them, because maybe they're limited on 401k contributions and things, and there's other things that they may not be able to do due to income, or they're limited on ways they can save. So the employer can provide additional benefits to them through a benefit plan. And I believe those are more tailored. I don't know if that's the specifics of what the limits are for that, but it's just a way for employers to give to those.
I think a lot of it, they're not great in terms of the investment growth, but they are great with regard to the tax mitigation.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, definitely for the employer, especially.
Yeah. So again, family business where, where I see this a lot is, like, you may have a spouse who's a professional and has a job, but they're a partner in the company, and that company does really well. And, in the age of the internet, it's not uncommon to see 1 or 2 man companies making $800,000-900,000 on the bottom line.
Sure. And
it's like, okay, but I only draw X from a salary because I'm 65. Right. And I've got a disability, right? Or something like that's in there. So there's some, all where it gets complicated is all the legal machinations that come to play. Then things like the defined benefit plan remove that money off the bottom line, so it's not taxable. But there's mechanisms that you have to hit, like you have to do a certain amount for 3 years, and right.
Yes, and I believe some of those fall through ERISA, which is the kind of the IRS. I believe part of the IRS who kind of set the guidelines, just like for 401ks, and that's kind of the reason why some of those things have more restrictions per se as like a simple IRA or SEP IRA, because there are ERISA guidelines that you have to make sure you follow, and that you're not favoring certain employees over others. And
Right. So it's not, these tools don't work for every company, but suffice it to say, the toolbox is pretty deep, that no matter what, the tools that work for the one-man lawn guy is not the thing that's going to work for a 50-person manufacturing firm or a 200-person, trucking company, but may work for a 2-person internet-based distributor, right? So the financial planner has to kind of marry up the tools to fit the objective to make it, and that's where it's really a profession. It's like, okay, if everything's not a nail, and everything doesn't get hammered, right? So it's not like a Marine, you just say, go break it, right? There's some subtleties to what works. And I beg people to pick up the phone and call a financial planner and start today if you own a small business. Even if it's 10 grand, I mean, even if you just put $10,000 away or $5,000 away, it compounds, it grows, it gets healthy. And then there, in the blink of an eye, you're 15 years later, you got, $500,000 or $750,000. You're able to breathe a lot easier when tough times hit, when you've got something in a war chest, as opposed to, hey, I'm 55 and I've got nothing and I'm gonna be doing this job. That's some sad stuff. And I think some of the small businesses we know, everybody could do it. It's all a matter of choices of where you're spending your money, right?
Yes. Yeah. There's options, as you mentioned earlier, there are many options, and it's not a one size fits all. And that's why it's important to talk to a professional, so that way you know what's right for you, and it can be tailored to you, and not, you shouldn't be meeting with someone who just, puts everyone in the same thing. It's not, just like every investment isn't going to work for, every person. People have different tolerances and what they want to do. So that's why it's important to find out what fits best for you.
Yeah, I think one thing you're really good at is making it simple. This sounds complex, but it's not. It's just, I think people spend a little bit too much time, like 2 seconds on CNBC, and they get overwhelmed and like put the TV remote down and, let's take a step back. The market dropped 300 points in a day, but you're 30. You're going to iron for 25 years, relax. And be patient. And I'm always appalled at how many people just have real estate holdings. That freaks me out.
Yeah. It's not what we recommend, but that's it's another topic for another.
Yeah, it's another topic for another. It's a piece of a puzzle, but it's not really a great puzzle. I don't do it. I for a lot of different reasons, but it's not my cup of tea. But it seems to be the simple man's understanding of it, because it's something you can touch, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of it has to do with a mentality kind of thing. There's a mental thing about, investing in something that you can't physically touch, but there's also a huge liquidity difference. You can't, get a house liquidated in 2 days or something.
Right. And that's a thing. Like, if you need to get cash quick to do something, you're not selling that house except at a deep discount. So all right, so where can people get a hold of you? Phone number, websites, email addresses, if they want to talk stuff. All this is confidential, by the way. He doesn't get to talk to anybody about your stuff. He's sworn to secrecy, right?
Yeah. I mean, we meet with individuals, or we even come we'll come to businesses and talk to your employees. Or talk to the employers about the options as well. But I can be reached at through email. Feel free to email me. You can reach me at mark.2.sutton@ampf.com, and also feel free to call me as well. My number is 863-688-6863. You can reach me Monday through Friday almost any time. If you get my voicemail or have to email me, we'll get back to you typically within 24 hours. We try to get a response to you as soon as possible.
All right. Well, thanks, man. I appreciate it.